How to create a front-end web application with Angular and Angular material. Today, I'll be picking up where we left off in a previous video where I showed you guys how to create an Angular web app from scratch and install and configure Angular material. If you need that video, check out the link up top or down below in the description. Links to the resources and the source code in today's video will be available in the description as well. Let's get started. Here in VS Code, you guys can see the Angular app that we created in the previous video with Angular material installed and configured, ready to go. The first thing we want to do is go ahead and navigate to the top here, select Terminal, and create a new terminal. Down here inside of the terminal, I'll go ahead and create specifically a new command prompt and close out of the PowerShell. What I want to do is cd into the app folder, and this folder is what we named our overall application folder in the previous video, and you guys can see it right here. And I'll go ahead and hit enter, and now I can run the command ng-serve to start up our locally hosted server where we can view our Angular web application on the front end. This usually takes a second, so just be patient with it. Once it starts up, it will provide you with your locally hosted URL right here. I'll go ahead and click on this. Here within our browser, we can see our URL displaying at the top here, and you guys can see the components that we brought in the previous video from Angular material. But today we're going to create our own custom front end with Angular material, so we want to get rid of this content for now. And to do that, what we need to do is navigate back to VS Code, go to the SRC, navigate to the app, and we're going to go ahead and start in the app.html here. And at this point, I'll shrink the terminal down just a bit, but I don't want to close out of it, so we can leave open the localhost server. And I'll go ahead and Control-A, delete all of this HTML content, and navigate to the app.scss and do the same thing as well. And you guys can see that we're using SCSS today because it's just better overall for the build when we're using Angular and material to create an application. So that's why we're using SCSS and not normal CSS. Next, we'll navigate to the app.ts, and up here at the top, we want to select all of these imports except for the component and signal here, and just go ahead and delete them and do the same within the imports here. And now if we go back to our locally hosted URL, you guys can see that all of that default content is gone, and we're not getting any errors letting us know that we removed everything and didn't mess anything up. Next, we'll navigate back to VS Code, and we want to go ahead and open the terminal back up. And here we want to create a brand new command prompt, close out of this PowerShell. And inside of our new command prompt, we'll again cd into the app folder. And we want to create a new component by running the command ng generate component followed by whatever we want to name this. And in our case, we're going to call this our navbar component and hit enter. And Angular will go ahead and create this brand new navbar component for us. And here within the app folder, you guys can see the navbar is set up and ready to go with all the necessary files. If we look at the navbar.html, we have this default paragraph element that says navbar works. But if we look back at our front end, you guys can see that nothing is displaying because we need to import this navbar into our app. So to do that, we'll go to the app.ts, and down here within imports, we can simply, with the help of VS Code, type out navbar, click this right here, and it will help us create this import line right here. And now that it's imported into our app, we can go to the app.html, and in Angular, to actually render our component, we need to start off with app dash and then followed by our component name here. And I can go ahead and hit enter. And now back on our front end, you guys can see the text navbar works, letting us know that we successfully created our component and imported it into our app and are now displaying it on our front end. Now, before we actually create any content, I want to go ahead and do a couple of things. So first, I want to navigate to the index.html, and down here at the bottom of the head, I want to import a custom Google font that I will be using today. And you guys can see right here, it's already bringing in by default, since we set up material, the Roboto font from Google. But in my case, I want to go ahead and use the Rubik Glitch font today. You guys can find this on Google Fonts, and I'll also leave a link to it down below in the description in case you guys want to use it. Next, I want to navigate to the public folder, and you guys can see we just have the favicon in here, the default one. What I want to do is go ahead and paste in the images that I'll be using in today's video right here. So if you guys have any images, they need to go inside of the public folder inside of your Angular app. Now that we're done importing our custom Google font and our images, what I want to do is open back up my browser, and I want to create a new tab here and navigate to Angular Material, and it's going to be this first one here. This link will again be available down below in the description, and right here it'll say getting started. But in the previous video we already installed and configured Angular Material, so we're going to go ahead and skip that step. Again, if you need help with this, check out the link to the previous video down below in the description. So for now, we'll navigate to components here, and we specifically want to navigate to the toolbar. So all the way here at the bottom of the components list, we can select the toolbar here. And the good thing about Angular Material is that it gives us a bunch of examples of the components themselves. So we can kind of scroll through, see what we like, and see what we want to use. In this case, there's only 2 different options for us right now. So for now, I'll go ahead and use this toolbar up here at the top. So we can see this example, but to actually use the code, we can navigate to where it says view code right here. And you guys can see we have HTML, TypeScript, and CSS. So what I like to do is I like to go ahead and start off with the TypeScript here. So what we need to do is copy these 3 lines right here to import the matte icon module, matte button module, and the matte toolbar module. And just a quick reminder, we don't need to import the component again because we're already doing that in VS Code. So let's go ahead and navigate back to VS Code, go to the navbar.ts file, and we can go ahead and underneath this component import, paste in these 3 lines. Now within the imports array right here, we can go ahead and bring in the matte icon module, the matte button module, and the matte toolbar module. From here, we'll go back to material, navigate to CSS. We'll go ahead and copy this line of CSS. And don't worry, this is going to work in our navbar.scss file, or if you're using just normal CSS, it will work either way. So we'll go ahead and paste in this line, then navigate back to Angular Material one more time, go to HTML. We can go ahead and just copy this HTML code. Then back inside of our navbar.html, we can get rid of this generic paragraph element and paste in the toolbar HTML here. And so now if we navigate back to our local host on our front end, you guys can see that the default toolbar that we brought in from Angular Material is successfully displaying. But obviously we don't want to just use this default content. We actually want to customize this. So at this point, I'll go ahead and move over my front end to the right and display VS Code on the left. And first we want to go ahead and get rid of all of this default content. So this button and span right here, we'll go ahead and delete it. And then below the span, we want to get rid of both of these buttons. You guys can kind of change everything around, but I personally find it easier just to delete what I don't want and then kind of just build everything back into this component here. So inside of our front end, you guys can see everything is gone, but our matte toolbar is still there. There's just no content inside of it yet. So what I'll do is go ahead and start off by creating some custom content. So I'll start off with an image here. And since we're using Angular, all we have to do to pull an image is just put a slash, because it's going to expect that all of our images are already inside of the public folder here, making it easy. So I'll just go ahead and put a slash, and then I'll go ahead and type out the name of the image, eel-fish-logo.jpg, and then I'll go ahead and say alternative text is logo for now. Now you guys can see in our front end that the image is successfully displaying, but it's not styled correctly. So today I am going to be using some custom SCSS, but just to save some time, what I'm going to do is just go ahead and paste it into my navbar.css here, and it will be available again down below in the description where you can view the source code and really take some time to look at it. So I'll go ahead and paste in this code already, and you guys can see I'm just adding a basic box shadow, adding the Rubik glitch font, changing the width and padding right of the image, and then I still have the example spacer class right here. Next, what I want to do is go back to Angular Material, go back to Components, and we want to go ahead and use the button now. So I'll select this one. And down here, you guys can see a whole bunch of different examples that Material provides us with. To actually use one of these buttons, all I need to do is view the code. And here in the HTML, I'll be using this basic button right here. So I can just copy this, go down here, and I'll switch back to my front end here so you guys can see it display, and just paste in that button. And now you guys can see it successfully displaying. And the reason we don't need to import the button module is because when we were setting up our toolbar, it already helped us import that. So if I go back to the navbar.ts, you guys can see that the mat button module is already being displayed. So if you guys have an error pop up, what you need to do is go ahead and import the TypeScript that you need to successfully display the button. And inside of this button, I want to get rid of the default text here, create an H2 element with the class of nav-title, and simply paste in the title. Next, I want to create two more buttons, so I'll go back here to Material, copy this basic button again, and just go ahead and paste it 2 times, but below this span here. And since we're using this span, you guys can see everything spaces correctly like so. So now I'll go ahead and change out this default text. I'll say home, and then the second button is going to be products. And after these two buttons, I want to actually bring in a different type of button. I want to bring in an icon button. So down here in Material, if we scroll down a little bit, you guys can see that we have our icon buttons down below. So I'll go ahead and copy just one of these, and then go ahead and below these two buttons that we just created, paste it in. But instead of this area label, I'm going to go ahead and remove this text and simply say cart. And then instead of this vertical dot icon right here, we actually want to use the shopping cart. So I can use the shopping cart icon by specifying shopping underscore cart. And now you guys can see that this is displaying. And again, we already have the icon module inside of our TypeScript file being imported, so that's why we're being able to use it. That's going to be it for our nav bar. Now we need to create our hero section. So down here in the terminal, we want to go ahead and create another component, and instead of that being called the nav bar, we're going to call this the hero, like so. You guys can see that is successfully created and is displaying here. So now we need to go ahead and again just import this into our app.ts. So I'll go ahead and down here within the imports, just to save some time, add a comma after the nav bar and say hero, and click on this to help Visual Studio Code write out the import line. And then back within our app.html, all I need to do is bring it in. So I'll say app-hero, hit enter, and now you guys can see the default text displaying. And now I can navigate to the hero.ts file right here, and we need to navigate to Material, go to Components, and I'm going to go ahead and search for the expansion panel here. And so it's this one. We'll go ahead and select that. Go ahead and view the code, go to the TypeScript, and what we need to do is copy both of these imports right here, go over here into our TypeScript in VS Code, and just replace this import with both of those lines here. And now we're bringing in the mat expansion module, the change detection strategy, the component like we were before, and the signal. And so down here at the bottom, you guys are going to notice that we also need to bring in this import right here. So I'll go ahead and paste this into our imports. And within the class being exported at the bottom, we need to bring in this line that starts off with read only. So all we need to do is copy and paste that here. And don't be worried about exactly what's going on here. It's not super important, but we just need to bring this in so this component works correctly. And then we also need to, I almost forgot to mention, bring in this change detection right here. So we'll just copy this and we can put that underneath our imports. So I'll just paste it in like so. Now we're done in the TypeScript file for our hero. We can navigate to the hero.html, get rid of this default paragraph element. And what I'm going to do is start off with a custom section element with a class of hero. And this is basically just going to be our container for our hero image. And what I want to do now is just go ahead and bring in the styling that I already have set up for today's video. So I'll just go ahead and navigate to the hero.scss and just paste this in. And all I'm doing here is setting up the SCSS to create a custom background image that's going to be used as our hero. And again, this is available down below in the source code if you guys need it. Now back in our hero.html, what I want to do now is navigate to the HTML for this expansion panel in material. I'll just go ahead and copy all of this code and just go ahead and paste it within our section. And if we go ahead and take a look at this in VS Code, you guys can see that our background hero image is successfully displaying because of our SCSS. And then over that, you guys can see the component that we brought in from material. But in our case, we don't want this top panel right here. So we're just going to go ahead and delete it. So back over here in the HTML, this first matte expansion panel, we can just go ahead and select all of this content and go ahead and delete it. And now you guys can see we are left with just this one here. And at this point, all I'm going to do is change out the text. So here where it says self-aware, I'm going to change this to sale. And then currently I am. This text needs to be click to. And then we have a basic conditional right here. And this is just going to display either open or closed depending on the state of this component. So I'm going to change open to lock and then closed to unlock like so. And then at the bottom inside of this paragraph element, I'm going to paste in the text $20 off $100 or more. Use code. And then I'm also going to use one more component from Angular material. So we need to go back to material, back to components, and search for the chip component. And you guys can see it right here. So I'll click on this, go to basic chips, view code, TypeScript, and I just need to bring in the matte chips module. So I'll go ahead and navigate back to the hero.ts, shrink this down so I can actually see what I'm doing, and then I will just bring it in after the matte expansion module. So I'll say matte chips module, click on this one, and VS Code will help me out with this import again. Always make sure that it's completing these imports for you up here at the top, or you will run into some issues. Now we can just go back to the HTML. I can navigate to the HTML over here in material, and I can just copy one of these chip components right here and just go ahead and paste it like so. And I can change out this text, and I'm just going to say the code is epic 20 for now. And back inside of our front end, you guys can see that our expansion panel is working successfully. And if we click on it, it says $20 off $100 or more. Use code EPIC20, and then we can also close this back down. Now we're done creating our custom hero section here with an expansion panel that is completely interactive and dynamic for the user. Next, we want to go ahead and create a grid where we can display some products on this front-end web app. So what we need to do is navigate back to VS Code again. And we want to create one more component today, and we're going to go ahead and call this just grid to keep it simple. Hit enter so we can create this, and then we just need to run through the process of again importing this into our app. So now that you guys are getting the point, I'm just going to go directly into the app.ts, and I'm simply going to, underneath our hero, say grid, and then just go ahead and click this so we can bring in this import statement. And then in the app.html, bring it in with app-grid, like so. So now I can navigate into the grid component itself right here. And what I want to do is go to the grid.ts file. So we're going to be bringing in two components into this. First, we want to bring in the matte button module, and we also want to bring in the card. But just so you guys can see where this is on Angular Material, I'll navigate back to Angular Material, go to Components, navigate down to the card right here, select this one. You guys can see an example, go to View Code, TypeScript, and then all I need to do is bring in the matte card module like so. So I'll just go ahead and underneath the matte button, just bring in the matte card module. Next, I can navigate to the HTML here in Material. Just go ahead and copy this. Go ahead and open back up my locally hosted URL so we can see this come together. And I want to navigate to the grid.html. I can get rid of this default. And I'm going to house everything inside of a section element here. And inside of this, I'll create an h2 with a class of heading. And just go ahead and say products. And after this h2, I'll create a div with a class of list, and then just go ahead and inside of this div, paste in the default matte card. And if I look at this down below, you guys can see that we still have some work to do because it's not correctly styled, but we are successfully bringing in the default card component right here because we can see it. So what we need to do from this point is I'm going to go ahead and bring in some custom SCSS. So I'll navigate to the grid.scss and I'll go ahead and paste in this styling. Nothing super complicated is going on here. All we're doing is setting up a basic responsive grid for our products and just centering and styling this subheading a little bit. And all the way at the bottom, you guys can see the media queries that are making this completely responsive. If you guys need help with some of this CSS throughout today's video, make sure you check out the link down below in the description to an HTML and CSS video where I walk you guys through exactly what's going on here. Now back in the grid.html, we want to start off by getting rid of some of this default content here that we do not need. So up here at the top, the first thing we're not going to need is we don't need this matte card header. So I'll go ahead and select this, delete it. And then we want to get rid of this appearance right here because we don't need that and we're not going to be replacing it with anything. Then the image down here, we could change everything out, but I find it a little bit easier just to delete it and create a new image right here. It's just less confusing overall. So for our first image, we'll say /iphone.png, and you guys can see it successfully displaying. And I'll just say alt for now, product 1. Then inside of the matte card content, we're going to get rid of this paragraph, create an h3, and I'll just go ahead and say product 1. Then underneath this, we'll create one more h3 with a class of price, and then just say price here. Then within the matte card actions, we're going to get rid of these two buttons right here. I'm going to create a new button with a class of btn. And I'm going to say add to cart. We want to create a matte button, but instead of this just being a normal matte button, we want to make this filled. And now you guys can see it being styled correctly. And the reason it's yellow is because I actually included that in the custom SCSS. Again, you guys can see that if you want to take a look at it down here underneath button. You can see the background color is changed to yellow. And in some cases, it doesn't like to interact real easily with custom SCSS as far as it integrating with material components. So if you can't get a normal styling to work, make sure you add the important clause at the end of your styling. So that's going to be it for our grid, but you guys can see we only have one product displaying. At this point, what we can do is we can hard code in two more items, for example, like so, by pasting it down below. But this is not really the most efficient way to display our products. So what I'm going to do is get rid of those two that I just pasted in, and we're going to go ahead and navigate back to the grid.ts. And what I'm going to do within the export here is I'm going to paste in a basic array of objects. So what's going on here is I'm bringing in 3 different objects, and it's important that each one has a unique ID, SKU value, whatever you want to call it, but you need to start off with a unique integer value here for each one of your products. So I just kept it simple and called it SKU. Then I have the name of the product as a string, the price as a floating point number, then the image as a string. And all this is doing is displaying the image. And down here for the HP laptop, I actually need to include the slash as well. So we have 3 products right here, each in an individual object of its own with a unique SKU value. The next thing we need to do is navigate back to the grid.html. And inside of this div with the class of list, we want to go ahead and create a loop. And the best way to loop through information and display it dynamically in Angular is going to be the new @for right here. This is going to function more like a basic JavaScript loop. So the days of using the old methods are over. If you guys aren't using this, this is the most up-to-date and most efficient way of looping through data inside of Angular. So I highly encourage you guys to start using this loop. And then here we can create parentheses, and I'm going to start off with product of products. So what's going on here is, long story short, is we're using the products array, and then we're looping through each individual object using product. Now after products, we need to include a semicolon, and then we need to track a unique value. So I'm going to specify track and say product dot SKU. And that's why it was so important that we have a unique value. This can be SKU, this can be ID. You can really name this whatever you want. Just make sure you keep it simple and you have a unique integer value for each one of your objects inside of the array. You guys can see that we're getting an error here because we haven't finished our for block. So what we need to do is, just like in JavaScript, after this, we want to include our curly braces here, and then just go ahead and move our mat card into the curly braces like so. And now you guys can see everything is just duplicating right now because we actually need to dynamically display all of the information. And right now we're still hard coding everything in. So we'll go ahead and start off with the image. So here for the src, we actually need to wrap this in square brackets. And that's only going to be for the src, nothing else. Get rid of this hard-coded value, and we want to say product.image. And I need to make sure to spell that correctly. And then for the alternative text, we'll get rid of this, use double curly braces, and say product.name. And this, I can go ahead and copy this line right here and just go ahead and paste it where it says product 1. And now you guys can see that the images are dynamically displaying along with the titles, and we need to do the same thing for the price. So I'll go ahead and just paste this in, but instead of product, I will say price, and then put a $sign in front of this. And that's going to be it for our dynamic product grid. You guys can see each one of our items dynamically displaying on our front end here by using the @for loop and our products array. So now I'm going to make this full screen, and you guys can see that our products grid is completely responsive here, as well as our navigation bar and our hero section. But if we inspect this and go into responsive and make our viewport width extremely wide, you guys can see that we don't want all of our content to just scale infinitely based on the viewport width. So to fix this issue, what I'm going to do is navigate back to VS Code, and I'm actually going to navigate into the styles.scss right here. And don't be afraid when you open this up. Everything that you're seeing is just all of the default stuff that was set up when you installed and configured material. So this is just all stuff that comes in from material, so don't be super worried about it. But all the way at the bottom, we actually want to add some custom styling to the body. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and kind of simplify this so I can look at it just a bit easier. And instead of margin being 0, I want this to be 0 followed by auto. And then I also want to add in a max width of 120 rem, and you guys can make this whatever you want in your case. Now if I go back to the front end here and inspect it again, you guys can see that at 120 rem and greater, it stops resizing the website based on the viewport width. Congratulations, you just learned how to create an entire front-end web application with Angular and Angular material. If you run into any problems or have any questions, make sure to leave them down below in the comments, and I will make sure to respond to you. And again, links to all of the resources and source code will be available down below in the description if you need them. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in another one soon.